case you're curious, Mike made the intro.
And just in case you're curious, it's episode 13.
Yes. You're number 13.
Yeah, you can do it.
That actually should be the intro to the episode.
That would be pretty good. Welcome to episode 13 of the Not Salty podcast. I'm your host, John Bell, and as always, I'm joined by my good friends and co-hosts, Kristin Skeevers and Mike Fenton. In this episode, we talk to Pastor Dave of the local Crossroads Church. I wasn't sure how to introduce Dave. Is he a pastor? Is he a preacher? What's the correct terminology? So as usual, I stuck my foot in my mouth. But after we got over that, we learned how Dave and his family discovered Deep Creek and how they started a church with only a 30-person following, only to grow it to a membership of over 2,000. Dave, preacher man, whatever it is that you would like for us to call you, you're a good man, and you and your family have been an amazing addition to the community. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you for spreading the word of God and good through the community. And most importantly, thank you for agreeing to be on the show. Mike, hopefully the show gets us one step closer to being forgiven. Hit the intro. And here we go. As Mike Fenton just pointed out to me, this is episode number 13. And wow, we've made it to 13. We were putting one out every Friday, and due to me, we missed last Friday. So I apologize. Hopefully all our listeners found something else to do last Friday.
I'm sure they did.
But no, I had to run down to Florida and help my parents with a few things, and we're back on track this week. And our lucky number 13 guest is Dave Marsh. Hi, Dave.
Hey, how's it going?
So my first question I'm going to ask you is, because I've been meaning to ask you this for years, and it's probably a question I should ask you in private, so instead I'm going to do it where the whole world's listening.
I love it.
Where all of our 10 listeners are listening. So what should I call you? I always call you Dave, and I don't know if that's the right thing to call you or not. Should I call you Pastor Dave, Preacher Dave? What's up, dude? Like, what is the right thing to call you?
My mother named me Dave.
Okay.
So we can stick with that.
All right, that works.
That's fine. Yeah, we're not big on titles, so.
Okay.
My wife calls me Preacher Man. My grandkids call me Pop. My kids call me Dad. Everyone else calls me Dave, so.
I might go with Preacher Man. That's pretty cool.
All right.
So, man, I don't even remember how many years ago it was I met you. It was a long time ago. When if you're from Garrett County, you probably know who Dave is. You've had a very positive influence on the town. I love you, man. You're a great guy. I'm really glad you're here, and your story's really neat. I'll let you tell it instead of me telling your story. But you guys had a dream, you had a vision to start a church here, and you started, and I believe you started it in Garrett 8 Cinemas in one of the movie theaters.
Correct. Many years ago, my wife and I got out the road atlas. Anyone remember those things? You guys?
Yeah.
I don't know. You're too young.
I've used it.
I love
Okay.
maps.
There's a good joke about Mike and his GPS we'll bring back someday.
Well, we had a road atlas, Rand McNally, I think, or one of those companies that made them. And I told her, I said, hey, let's go drive and look at some ski resorts. We lived in West Virginia at the time. And so I found Seven Springs, Hidden Valley. So we went up there. Now, we had never been skiing. And I said, well, let's just go check out, these resorts. And so we did. So we drank some hot chocolate and watch people fall and, walk around the lodge and all that. And so as the day kind of went on, I was trying to figure out how we're going to get home. And I said, well, look, there's one more down in Maryland, and it's right on 219. I said, it's called the Wisp. I said, well, let's drive down there and we'll check that one out, and then we'll go home. And so we came to the Wisp, same thing, hot chocolate, watch people fall, but we heard singing.
Okay.
And we were both singers and musicians, and so we kind of followed the sound, and we're just wandering through the lodge until we can find where the singing is coming from. And so we came, to the hotel part, and there was a room back there. We opened up the doors, and there's like a youth group or something in there singing. They've got guitars going, and people are singing. So we just kind of snuck in the back corner and joined in, and again, that's what we did too in church, And so as I was walking out of that room, I told her, I said, wouldn't it be cool if someone kind of put a church in a resort area where people are coming and they're looking for, rest and relaxation, but what if they could add a spiritual element to, what they were doing on their vacation? I said, but it would have to be a casual church, and you wouldn't have to dress up and all this sort of stuff. So that was kind of the idea to put a church here. And about 6 months later, we ended up moving here, and we're a part of another church for about 5 years. And then we left and went to the state of Indiana, Evansville, Indiana area, and we were out there. But we could not get this idea for Garrett County out of our heads, or at least I couldn't. And my wife said, you're kind of miserable. We should probably do something else. And I was like, well, okay. And there was nothing going wrong in our lives. It was all good. It was just like we had fallen in love with Garrett County, and we felt like we were supposed to be here, So put the house up for sale and put in the resignation and got in the U-Haul and drove at that time, I think we might have had 4 kids.
Okay.
At that
So it was a big move.
It was a big move, 500 miles away, and no job, no house, no nothing. And couldn't find a place to live in Garrett County because we still owned a house out there. It was like, what are we going to do? And I said, well, I think I need a job. So I took a job at a music store in Morgantown, and we found a place to live over there.
Was that Follies?
Yeah,
cool.
Folly Music.
Yep.
And so I would do that, and then we started the church literally 1 week later. From the time we moved back, the next Sunday, we started meeting in Garrett 8 Cinemas.
So in business, I 100% remember my very first customer, right? But it's different. It was me on a first customer. When you have your first church service, who was there? Was it just you and Patty? How did that? Walk me through that.
Yeah. So we did have some friends here who weren't going to church anywhere.
Yeah.
And so we had reached out to them and told them the idea. And we said, hey, would you be interested in helping us doing this? And most of them said, yeah. And so we had with our family and a few folks we knew, there were 30 of us. And so that was kind of our core.
Okay.
And we said, all right, let's do this thing. Had no idea what we were doing. Even though I had been in ministry, I had never started a church.
Yeah.
I didn't know there were whole systems. There were organizations to help you. There were financial backers that if you knew to ask, you could have asked, but I was too dumb. I didn't know.
How hard can it be? We'll start a church.
Exactly. And so there was not a lot of planning. People will, sometimes ask me now, well, what was the process you went through? And I said, well, we drove back, we borrowed a sound system, and we started having church. That's all I knew to do.
So what year would that have been approximately? What do you think that was?
Oh, you lose track of time, but it was 15 years ago, so whatever that is, one of you guys can do the math.
Approximately 15 years ago, you decided to do this. You had 30 people show up on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And I don't mean this to brag, and I don't think it wouldn't be me bragging for you, but I don't think you're the type of person to brag to begin with. That's not where I'm going with this. How many members do you have today?
Well, it's a little hard because people are transient and they come and they go, but about 2,000.
That's amazing. And what I've noticed is, you can yell at me for this in a little bit, I get there as often as I can. Unfortunately for me, I work on weekends, and I need to get better at coming on Sundays. But when I come there, I feel very welcome. Everybody's very happy. You made a point a minute ago about a casual church. If you look at me, I'm not very fashionable. I wear the same pair of blue jeans for 7 days and then put my other pair on. And I'm in the top 50%, so I fit in. My point is, it's very comfortable. And when Noelle and my wife and I decided we were going to start going to church, we went to a couple of them, and they were all super nice. They were all great, and probably all preach the same word, and good churches. We just felt really comfortable and welcomed with your organization. And I've watched you grow, or watched the church grow over the years. I mean, to the point where it used to be comfortable, and now it's very comfortable. Like, you guys have donuts for the kids when you walk in. Like, you have people standing there and saying hi to you. Like, you have created around a church a community of very, very good people. It's neat to see that.
Just one correction. The donuts are for the adults as well.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay, good. I make Natalie pretend to put one in her pocket. No, I'm kidding.
Well, we noticed that. And we were just like, someone tell John he can have a donut. It's fine.
No, it's great. You guys have coffee. I think that's actually what sold me on it. And at first you didn't have free coffee, which now you do. That's awesome. But how often you go to church, I would bring my Yeti tumbler with a great big, 24 ounce of coffee. And it's great. You guys open it up. It seems like you always start with 3 or 4 songs, and then you always close out with a song or two. And Mike, you guys would get along great. Dave's a really good
We're already
guitar
cutting it up
player.
a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's neat. But I will tell you that just you go there and all those people, and there are people that you kind of sort of know because you see them around town, and it's a different environment, and everybody. I don't know if you want to get into it. How many people does your organization help? I mean, you guys are sponsoring everything. You're helping feed kids in schools. I mean, it's what you have done is obviously very good to promote religion and help people in that way. But you've also helped the county. I've seen you reach out to places in West Virginia and help them. I've seen you guys help people overseas in certain areas. I mean, you're just the outreach from this little town, from some dream you had 15 years ago that 99% of the world would have called you crazy over is amazing.
Well, thank you for saying that, and we're just really blessed. I mean, our people are very generous, and since day one, we've always taken the approach of, hey, if someone in our county is already doing something that's good and it's working, we don't have to replicate that. We don't have to do that ourselves. Let's just get behind them and help them do it. So that's kind of just been our philosophy of the way we do things. And so, we look for organizations that are doing great things in Garrett County, and we have a bunch of them.
Yeah.
The amount of people who have a heart to give and serve in this community it's just, I hate to say crazy because we think that's a bad thing, but it's crazy. I mean, there's just so many people who are serving in the community. So we look for ways to say, hey, how could we give them some money, or how could we send them some volunteers, or, how could we help get the word out or promote them? And so that's just what we've done. And I think it's helped us multiply that impact again. If we went out and tried to start all these different things, like we don't have a food pantry. People say, well, you're the biggest church in the region. Why don't you have a food pantry? Well, we don't have a food pantry, but Oak Park Church of the Brethren has a food pantry.
Oh, so you can help them.
And we can help them. House of Hope has a food pantry. We just helped another one in Grantsville. They're already doing that work, and they're doing a great job of it. And they've got the space and the logistics, and they know how to do it. Let's give them some money. Let's get behind them, give them some support.
No point in recreating the wheel. If they're already out there and they're doing a good job with it, help them out and serve other people.
Yes.
A lot of times it almost seems like all it takes is someone to open the door for that to happen. And that's what it seems like you've been very good at. There already were, like you said, great people in the community. They wanted to volunteer. They wanted to do stuff. You actually opened the door and allowed them to do that. It's neat to see what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
So I do have another personal question for you. I went down to my parents' house last week, and I was talking to my mom and dad, and I don't remember what spawned this idea, the thought in my head. It might have been something on Facebook you put up or something like that. But I asked my mom if I had been baptized, and my dad said, yeah. And my mom said, well, I don't really know. So I'm not 100% sure if I have or not. According to my mom, we went to a Baptist church in Virginia, and I believe what I got out of the story was they did the christening thing for me. I was going to kind of ask you what that means because I really don't know. But I think I was a baby, and they came up there and they rubbed water on my head. And I thought at 46 years old now, I thought that meant I was baptized until I just asked my dad and my mom, and I don't think I was anymore. So I promised my mom I would do this. She's going to be home next time. I'll be there.
All right.
Do I have to ask you? Like, how does that work? Will you baptize me? I know you do it with people all the time.
Yeah, we'll do it. So every church looks at that differently.
Okay.
And you may be opening up a can of worms here, but we'll just go with it.
All right, cool.
All right. So we have our own way of looking at that. So we don't baptize infants and babies, but some churches do, and that's okay if they want to do that. What we do is we call that dedication, or some may call it christening, but we do a dedication where we bring the family up and we say, hey, you are dedicating this child. You're recognizing that every baby is a gift from God. And so his mom, dad, grandparents, maybe sometimes aunts and uncles, whoever comes in the family, we're just stopping for a minute. We're just reflecting. We're looking. And I mean, I don't know how anyone can look into the eyes of a baby and not believe in God.
Sure.
I don't know how you do that, but some people do. But we're stopping. We're reflecting. We're looking into the eyes of this baby, and we're saying, God, this is a miracle from you. And so what we're going to do is we're going to try our best. We know we're not going to be perfect parents, but we're going to try our best to raise this child in a home that is loving, to raise this child in a way that one day they could have their own faith. So that means we're setting examples for them, okay? And so what we do is we do that dedication. We pray over them. And then when they are old enough to make their own decision, we will baptize them. Okay. And so lots of folks are baptized as kids or, as babies, and then they'll come to us later and they'll say, hey, I was baptized, as an infant, but that was really a decision my mom made or my grandma made. That wasn't really my decision. But now I've come to my own faith, and I'd like to make that decision for myself. Will you baptize me? The answer is always yes.
That's where I was relating this personally.
Yes.
So if I was or if I wasn't when I was a baby, it wasn't because I chose to do it. It was my parents took me there. So at 46 years old, I would like to do it because I choose to do it. And that's legit? That's the right process?
Yep.
It's interesting that's what. So what denomination is Crossroads?
We are non-denominational.
Non-denomination. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so
which means we can't commit to a denomination. That's what.
yeah. Okay.
He in 15 years ago, he watched the Da Vinci Code and started church.
So no, it's interesting that's the path that you decided on, because my wife and I had discussed what we wanted to do, and I've always been like, wait till she's old enough to decide for herself. I mean, I hadn't taken into consideration the dedication process that you just explained, which I like that as well. But I just, in my mind, I was always like, it seems like a personal thing that you should, come to God and however you want on your own way, correct? I mean, is that the idea?
Yeah, the only caveat I would say to that is if a child is going to make that decision, you do have to expose them to that world.
Certainly.
So that they could make a decision, where some would say, oh, no, I'm not going to force my religion on my kids, which I think is a bad idea. I don't think you should. Mm-hmm. But Scripture does tell us to train up a child in the way that he should go. When he is old, he'll not depart from it. You have to put them in, it would be like to say if you shielded your kids, you never let them see anything, how could they make certain choices on their own? Well, if they don't have any sort of, I don't want to say exposure to faith or religion or any of those things, it'd be very hard for them to make that choice.
Certainly.
But so we believe that it's a personal choice that, hopefully you're exposed to that. There is some element of faith in your life. So if kids are curious, they can dig deeper and find the truth for themselves.
That's cool. Is there an age range in your head?
I was just going to ask that. Is there like a minimum age where you're like, okay, you understand enough to do it?
Probably the youngest I've baptized would be 6 years old.
Okay. So I mean, I was raised Lutheran and we have like a confirmation.
Yeah.
Same.
Right. And like I think you're over 10. I can't remember how old I was.
I was in middle school.
So like 10 to 13. So I was just curious if that's kind of like a similar age range that you're seeing with baptism. Like, is that like a similar process with like a non-denominational and Lutheran, like a confirmation kind of like what you're considering baptism? Because I'm assuming I was baptized as a baby.
Christian.
Right?
Yeah.
And then my confirmation was kind of what you're saying. That's like me saying it's my choice now.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I would want to do is talk to a child and say, well, what does this mean to you? And if
they're old enough to understand, then it's a good idea.
And so even some of my kids, I've said, hey, I don't think you quite understand yet. Why don't we wait another year? And they're like, okay, Dad, it's fine. And, the next year they're able to tell me, hey, what does this mean? Well, I've been buried with Christ and I've been resurrected with him into new life. My sins are gone in his grave and my new life is in him and my future is in heaven. And, whatever their terms are, but you can get an idea of whether they understand what they're talking about or not, But in the Bible, if you read the Bible, there are people that on the day they came to faith in Christ, they were baptized at that moment, So there wasn't a lengthy process.
There wasn't a physical.
There wasn't a class. There wasn't that. But as we said, lots of denominations have their own ways, their own traditions, and we've just always taken the approach of, you do it the way that you feel is proper, and we'll do it the way we do it.
My theory on it, and this is, you've feel free to jump in, is that God knows what you're doing anyway. So if God knows everything about you, he's going to know if you're doing it with bad intentions or if you're doing it with right intentions. And I was going to bring this up because I've been there when you've done it twice. And one time was in the church and you guys like a little pool thing.
Yeah.
And I watched you do it in the lake before. And I guess my point is, does God actually care if it's holy water or lake water or it's, and then the second follow-up to that is, are you still doing it in the lake?
Yeah. Well, we don't do it at Deep Creek Lake anymore because the church got too big.
Okay.
And so the last time we did it, the park manager, he was pulling his hair out because
it was the busiest day at the state park.
We just invaded
July 4th.
Yeah. We invaded the beach, because people wanted to come and support those who are doing it, and I love doing it in the lake.
Yeah.
That's really
neat.
That's my favorite. And I think we had 4 lines going, and we were just teams of people baptizing people. We had people stopping on the bridge watching, boats pulling up, people cheering and honking their horns and that kind of stuff. It was really cool, but it wasn't great for the park when they had tourists there,
Sure.
and so we have moved them indoors. Now there are times that we will do smaller groups of people, at the lake or somewhere else, but
you can still use lake water. I'll bring you a bucket. I'll bring a 5-gallon bucket of lake water.
Bring it over.
Do you do like fully submerged indoors too, or?
Yes, yeah, we got a little tank.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna get you wet.
So if it's somebody you don't like or somebody that really needs to meet Jesus real quick, do you hold them under for an
Hold them
extra
down
second?
longer.
Just a little shake, maybe.
We've had people offer to give special offerings if we would hold someone down, and I'm not saying we oblige, but we.
Noel, you are not allowed to bribe Dave before.
I've been missing out.
Yeah. But yeah, the power's not in the water, and it's not in the location. It's not even in the words you say.
It's in the commitment and
what's going on in your heart. I baptized my dad when he was 83 years old.
Yeah.
I couldn't get him in a tank. I dumped water over his head at the state park. He was just too old. We couldn't get him in the lake, and God saw that. He saw his heart, and that's more important than the water.
Since you brought him up, when you were a little boy, did he ever look at you like, he's going to be a preacher someday? Is that how you grew up?
My grandfather was a preacher.
Yeah.
And my uncle was a preacher, but I did not know them.
Yeah.
And so my mom told me that I always said when I was little I was going to be a preacher or Elvis.
Okay.
And so I tried to combine the two worlds, and I did music for a long time, and then I went to preaching. But I was we only went to church till I was about 6 years old.
Okay.
And then my family stopped going to church. They just went through some stuff, and life happens, and they got out of the habit, and so they stopped going to church. And so I went into music, and that's what I did. I traveled and played bars and clubs and festivals and shows and did all that sort of stuff, from here down to Myrtle Beach and back. And that was just kind of my life. And one weekend we were playing Broadway at the beach, which if you ever go to Myrtle Beach, it's
sure, we know where it is.
We're playing there, and it was a beautiful sunny day, and people are dancing everywhere, and that was my dream, that. I kind of made the big time. That's as far as really I wanted to go. I just wanted to make a living, and but I was miserable.
Yeah.
I was just again that miserable thing. God seems to speak to me through misery.
So what about it was making you miserable? Like just
empty,
traveling?
Empty.
Just feeling
just like, hey, this is what I've worked for, and it's still not doing it for me.
Yeah.
You were there to do a job. You weren't there because you wanted to be there.
Yeah, and I loved it. We had a great band. We were playing oldies music. It's fun music, saxophone, Hammond B3 organ, and people danced and all that. It was fun. I love the guys I was playing with, but it just empty. Just like, this is not my purpose.
Insufficient.
Yeah,
in a way.
Yeah. It's like I don't know if we've probably all done this. Like, you wanted to buy something. And you researched it, and you looked around, and you found the best deal, and you went and looked at that one. No, you didn't want that one. I'm going to keep going. I'm going. But whatever, you finally get the boat or the car, or I won't say the house because we know houses make people happy, right? But you
definitely, if you want to be real happy, get baptized, then buy a vacation house.
Yeah. The more houses, the happier.
Yeah. So, but you get that thing, 100%. And then 2 days later or 3 days later or 3 weeks or whatever it is, it just did not quite fulfill, and next thing you know, you're on eBay looking for another one, or and so that's where I was. I was just unfulfilled, and so I did not read the Bible. I hadn't been to church in years. I don't know that I prayed. I always knew God was real, but I didn't really have a strong relationship with him. And so, but just there in that state I was in, I'm just playing guitar, and watching people dance. And I just said, God, if you get me out of this was the only life I knew. I'd quit school really, I became a dad at the age of 17. I got married at 16. I was like, if you get me out of this, I'm going to find you. That's all I knew. So that was a Saturday, drove back home on Sunday. Monday, walked into a music store in Clarksburg, West Virginia. And the guy said, hey, don't you live in Fairmont? I was like, yeah. He said, I'm starting a new store in Fairmont. He said, would you manage it for me?
Yeah.
Well, that was my answer, because I did know music, and I had to earn a living, but it was going to get me out of that lifestyle I was in, of the travel and all that. What I didn't know is on Monday mornings, no musicians come into music stores.
Okay.
They're trying to recover from
the
weekend.
Yeah.
They played till 2 a.m. and did all the things that go along with that lifestyle, and they're just trying to recover.
The 6 a.m. shift at the music store isn't very popular.
But I'll tell you who comes into music stores: preachers.
Okay.
Because something went wrong with their sound system. The microphone broke. There was feedback. They're mad. And then we were in downtown Fairmont, and a lot of the churches were African American. And if you ever go to an African American worship service, I don't want to paint with too big a broad brush here, but they just worship different than a lot of us white folks,
Yeah.
And our service might be an hour long. Their service might be 3 hours long. And these ladies would buy tambourines.
We're good with an hour.
Oh, yeah. I noticed you always looking at your watch about 58 minutes into it.
He does that even when he's not at church.
Is that right? All right. But these ladies would play these, they'd buy these tambourines, and they would have beat these tambourines for an hour on their hip, and it would break and all this stuff. So they'd come back and they were like, hey, I need a new tambourine. And we had church yesterday, and they'd look at me and they say, where'd you go to church? And I said, well, I don't go to church. Well, why don't you go to church? And so what I didn't know is there's this big spiritual word called sovereignty, that God eventually gets us where he wants us to be, even if we don't even really know that he's doing it at the time. And that's what he was doing. He was putting me in a place where people now were coming in and they were starting to talk to me about church.
He opened the door for you.
Correct. And so one thing led to another, and a guy, so when they found out I was a musician, they would always say, hey, come and play music at our church. And I was afraid to do that because I knew I would just hide behind the music. I knew that they would just, put me up there, but there was something wrong in here, and I had to try to figure out what that was. And so that emptiness was still there. And so anyway, long story short, a guy said, hey, I'm starting a church. He said, I need a sound man. So he didn't ask me to play music. He just said, could you run the soundboard? And I thought, well, soundboard, I know it's going to be in the back of the room. No one will be seeing me. No one will be paying attention to me. I didn't want any of that. I was very nervous about going back to church.
That's a pretty serious calling too, because I've been learning how to mix not just live music, but my own recordings and stuff like that. And I'm a big YouTuber. 90% of the stuff you find on YouTube is worship. And
really?
It's so impressive. I mean, it's amazing how talented and how much call for talent it is. And I never even thought about it, but you're putting on a sound performance, right?
Yeah.
For a room, you're adjusting all the time for the room, and I mean sometimes you have massive bands, especially like you were saying. I went to an African American service one time. My neighbor was like, "You should come to church with me," and I was blown away. I mean, it was amazing, especially as a musician. So it's pretty cool that that was your going in was running sound. Have you ever done that before, like running sound?
I had, but just because I was involved in the music business, so eventually you'd find yourself behind that soundboard. So
Sure.
That was kind of my reintroduction to church, and that was his first service. And I thought, this wasn't bad. Maybe I'll go back next week. And I went back the next week, and one thing led to another, and that was many years ago.
So it's the man in the arena thing. When I'm sitting there watching you, you look incredibly comfortable on stage. Like you're in front of anywhere up to 2,000 people at a time, and you're in your element. You look comfortable. I'm sure that you're the man in the arena, and your adrenaline's going, or you're human, right? But if you think about all that stuff you just said. And if you want the hair on the back of your neck to stand up, maybe that was God getting you there. The way you can relate is you've done that. You became a follower at an early age. From my understanding, you came from very humble beginnings from some of your stories, and you made it. You didn't get divorced. You didn't take the easy road. You didn't. I mean, you worked your butt off, and you would. It's kind of like the Charlie Brown cartoon. It's God, please give me a sign. And there's a sign right behind him saying, go that way. But he just didn't read the sign.
Didn't turn around.
But that all that stuff is probably what made you where you are today. That was your college.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think all of us can look back on our lives, and see different experiences that God put us in, or people we met along the way, or those things that just kind of stick with you. Like you can't shake them. Like, what was that person I talked to at that restaurant, or what was that sign, or there's just things that just kind of, it's not really in your head, it's deeper than that. It's in your heart somewhere. And I think if we have some sort of sense of that life is more than we can just see with our natural eyes, I think we're able to trace that to the hand of God. And I certainly believe, I brought a bunch of our staff up on the platform on Sunday because we're talking about how do we find God's will for our lives. And I said, right now my job is to stand behind this pulpit and preach, but I had our sound man up there, and I said, but years ago my job was to do this. Yeah. And then I had our music director up there, and years ago my job was to do this. And then I had our media guy up there. I said, years ago my job was to do this. I said, I wasn't any less in the will of God running sound than I am preaching.
Probably equally as important.
Equally as important. I can't do my job without that guy.
Right.
And so the system of the kind of the world we live in is it paints this picture of climbing a ladder to success. But I don't really see that in the way God sees things. We don't climb ladders necessarily in his kingdom. Again, I know the world has a way of measuring success.
But don't you look at it as you were always there, you just didn't know it yet? Like, isn't that the way you should look at it? You've always been where God wanted you to go. You just didn't realize it because you were on your way there, right?
It's a journey. So God is just as concerned with the journey as he is the destination.
Because it turns you into who you are.
Correct. All those things, our character and our calling walk side by side, and he's always using everything we walk through to prepare us, for that next thing.
Well, what else exists other than the moment anyway?
Now that's deep. Let's talk about snow.
Listen, this guy writes poetry that doesn't rhyme.
But I only read books that do rhyme.
So we figured out only smart people enjoy poetry that doesn't rhyme. So
we solved a lot of problems before.
Man, I'm pretty low on the intelligence list. Then I just don't get it.
Do you like rhyming poems?
Well, sure. Yeah. Okay. Roses are red. Hey, so we were joking around a little bit before we came in here, and I was joking about, can you say a little prayer for us that it might snow? We really need snow right here. And obviously, I'm just kidding. Don't waste your time on that. But it made me think. I wonder how funny would it be someday if you actually got to talk to God and he told you about all the people who made promises to him? Like you were saying, God, if you get me out of this concert in Myrtle Beach, I will follow you. I will do this. How many promises do you think he actually gets and most people don't? I guarantee if you dissected my life, I'm guilty of it. I guarantee you I've done that at some point,
Yeah. I think
probably shouldn't.
I think a lot of us say things to God, that we probably shouldn't, but thankfully he's merciful, and
he's got to have a little bit of a sense of humor.
I am sure. Yes.
I'll just to add to that. When I was a kid, we got 2 kittens, and I lost them in my house. I couldn't find them, and I did say, "Please, God, if you help me find these kittens, I will never ask for anything again." And I was probably like 7 or 8.
And you've never asked anything again, have you?
Well, I think that I've broken that. So I'm one of those people. But yeah, I did find the kittens.
Found the kittens.
I found the kittens. So yeah,
that's great.
But anyway, yeah, you do reach out in times of need.
So I imagine
that's your thing. We're human. We're flawed. I mean, it's, obviously you don't want to take that excuse every time, but
Yeah.
As a musician, and I mean, I assume your kids are all grown, and are your grandkids at like Disney, Pixar kind of age at all? Have you seen the movie Soul? Is what I was going to ask.
Oh, I don't know if I have. I think I have. I have.
It's fantastic, and
a lot of
it's
really good music in it, right?
Well, good music, but it's a guy who is a musician, and he never gets a chance to perform on stage. And the day that I won't spoil the movie too much, but the day that he gets his big break, he falls down and dies. And he's like, and so the whole movie takes off where like he's this soul getting ready to go to the great beyond, and there's all these characters, and a lot, the whole movie's about finding your spark, and it's Lucy loves it, and it's probably my favorite like kids movie. It's fantastic. As a musician and a man of the cloth, or casual cloth, as you guys are saying, I think you'd really get a kick out of it. Check it out.
Yeah, I have to check that out. So.
The other one, what's the one where the guy, he started the song, Would I Dance for You, Jesus? Why am I drawing a blank?
I Can Only Imagine.
I Can Only Imagine, yeah.
Yeah.
So Molly and I watched that, and she's watched it 5 times. I've watched it with her a little bit here and there, but that always makes me laugh when he's thinking, would I dance for you, Jesus? And in my mind, that is probably the last thing Jesus would want me to do. I don't know why.
John, just do what you're good at.
He's like, hey, buddy, you've already been baptized. Just chill out. Like,
I've given you gifts for a reason.
Certain people have their things. Mine is not dancing. I am 100% confident Jesus would not want me to dance.
That surprises me. I feel like you'd be a good dancer.
It would be so embarrassing. I would probably try, and he would be like, no, just cut it out.
Yeah.
That's
maybe
awesome.
in heaven.
Yeah, maybe
you
so.
get a new gift.
I'd have some wings or something. Let's hope.
Yeah, we just watched that movie Sunday night, actually, at church. We did a movie night. That's an incredible movie.
That's why I was thinking about it. Natalie was there.
What movie
I think
was
that's
it?
what
I'm
it's
sorry.
too.
It's called I Can Only Imagine.
Oh.
And that was a song that was crossover Christian pop radio. It was a huge song, but it was based on a true story. This guy and his dad, he had an abusive dad. And the dad was just this awful guy, and but later in life he got cancer and started thinking about the end of his life, and he ends up coming to the Lord, and him and his son, they kind of heal that relationship. And again, it's a true story. The lead singer of this band, Mercy Me, and he wrote this song, I Can Only Imagine, and that's one of the lines.
Wow, pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the neat things too, didn't it only take him 5 minutes to write that song, but he goes, no, it took me an entire life to write the song.
Yeah,
like it was kind of neat when you look at it that way. Like part of saying, I wrote it in 5 minutes. Well, no, it actually took me 35 years to get here.
Yeah,
sort of
that's one of the kicker lines in that.
Yeah.
And again, that kind of goes back to God using our whole life. We've all got, I don't know, I heard you the other day, you just turned 46.
46.
Yeah. In CDC right now, I know you said 90. You might.
You listen to the podcast.
Listen to the podcast.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so I see where you're going now.
CDC says maybe 76, but I don't know. I don't know how well you want to listen to the CDC. But anyway, that's another podcast. But yeah, I mean, we all do have an end date.
Yeah.
For this life. Anyway.
I'm kind of happy I don't know when that is. Could you imagine? What if you knew it was 76 or 93 or whatever?
It's like
you don't want to know.
movie Big Fish, where they look into the witch's eye and you see how you're going to die. They're like, I don't know if I want to do that. And he's like, I think I do. And then he lives his whole life but fearless because he knows when he's going to die. It's an interesting movie. That's another good one. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. I just had a friend who had pancreatic cancer, and he knew he was going to die.
Yeah.
And so he lived 4 years from that diagnosis. And up until a few months ago, he was in Kentucky volunteering. There were some big floods down there. And he was volunteering, building houses down there. And he knew that he only had a short time left, And I just watched that guy and what he did with his life, and just amazed, just admire the character in someone who would just use their last days to serve others. And ironically, so his funeral was 2 weeks ago. They asked us to sing "I Can Only Imagine"
really?
at his funeral. That was his favorite song. But not to be too down here in the podcast, but we
inspiring.
we are all going to, we need to do something with his life. That's the only real key to happiness, is to serve other people and find something worthwhile doing. The idea of just to serve ourselves or pile up more money in a bank account or more toys, or what's that going to do for you?
I've noticed a shift recently with culture, and it's not as big as I hope it becomes, but it has shifted some. We were talking about buying commodities, a new iPhone, a new iPad, a video game system. Kind of neat. I don't have a video game system. I don't even know what they're called. Nintendo, whatever. That's when I was a kid. But
old guy.
yeah, I know, seriously. But we have seen that shift some, and I really see it in my daughters and their friends and all that kind of stuff. It's gone to more experience, and I do like that, and I don't know what your experience is. Your experience might be going and helping build houses, or your experience might be going on a vacation or riding horses or whatever. If you're looking to fulfill yourself, I know me personally, if I go buy a new iPad, it's sitting in the corner in 2 weeks, and I could care less about it. My old one's probably just fine. But if I go out and do something, like if I go out and do an experience that stays with me longer, and I still talk about it, and I've seen that shift in culture, and I think that's we were in a meeting this morning, the three of us were, and we were talking to an economic, what's the word I'm looking for? Economic?
He was a doctor.
He's a doctor in economics. I forget what his actual term is, but a very smart man talking about the economy, and he was talking about just people aren't buying as much as they used to, but a little bit. They're still buying a lot of stuff. Yeah. And that's part of being American. You got to grow out of that. And I think that shift's kind of cool. Like at 46 years old, in my next whatever years, I hope I have more experiences than buy stupid stuff I don't need.
Yeah. When you think about, I don't know everyone's experiences here, but let's say I've got 6 kids. We had kind of 2 sets of kids, so we still have 5 at home. All right. So at home, we got a 21-year-old, a 20-year-old, 17. Those are boys. 17-year-old girl, 15-year-old girl, 12-year-old girl.
Good grief! You remember all their names?
Sometimes we say, whatever your name is. I told you not to do that.
I have 2, and I mess up their names sometimes.
Yeah, but those, at least our second set of kids. So our first, our oldest son, we were pretty poor. We couldn't give. There was a lot of things we could not give him. And he always gives us a hard time, like, well, we never had that. I said, we couldn't have, we couldn't do it, But for my kids, your kids, pretty much whatever they need, they're going to have.
Sure.
And I do think there is something in this younger generation now that maybe feels kind of that still emptiness of like, we got all the stuff, but there still has to be something more. My son who's 20, he has friends like everybody does, and some of his friends have gone through some really hard things in life. And he says, Dad, when I look at their lives, like, I got it made, and I'm glad he can see that. He's not comparing or thinking he's better than someone else, but
he's realizing how lucky he is.
Yeah, he's like, wow, it's producing gratitude in him, and he's realizing that it's not just all this material pursuit, because at the end of that stuff, there's just not much there.
And that's hard to do, because every time you turn around, there's a big flashy sign somewhere telling you need a new iPad. It's hard to remind yourself to be grateful for what you have.
Yeah.
There's been a bunch of things that have changed me over the years. There's been nothing that changed me like having kids. Like when you just said, if you can't look at a baby and don't realize God exists, there is a higher power of something that's a miracle, right?
Yeah.
And then the other miracle is, I don't know how it changes all dads, but the other miracle is how it changed me. I am a totally different person than I was before kids. Like I'll joke that, I don't know. I read something the other day that said, we get to watch our kids grow up, but our kids don't realize they actually get to watch us grow up. And that actually led into me. Like my 13-year-old has no idea how much she's watched me grow up over the past 13 years. I watch her and I realize that, but she doesn't know how I've changed. And it's just how you look at things is different. And it's just, I don't know. I think kids teach us as much as we teach them. They probably more.
I hate cliches, man, but everything changed when I had a kid. There's no doubt. Yeah.
You look at things different. Like it's just, I don't know. Like it just, and probably, I don't know, the difference between a 20-year-old male and a 40-year-old male is insanely different, even if you didn't have kids, just biologically. But that's something that changed me a lot.
Yeah. And they probably don't know how scared to death we are. They're scared of a lot of things in life, but we're scared that we're going to mess them up. Or they're watching us, and we
every day.
Yeah, but it's like, oh, is this the right thing to do? Is that the right thing to do? And when they hit the teenage years, that's a whole that's a whole.
Natalie just turned 13. She grew into a teenager in 3 seconds. It was pretty neat.
Yeah.
She's a great.
Those
kid.
are the two emotions that I don't think I've ever really felt until I have a kid. Was love. No offense to my wife, and she knows.
No,
this.
I think that's true. Yeah.
Love and fear. You know, I don't think I've never been afraid to die. You know, I'm not like a risky guy. Like I wasn't running up climbing towers and stuff like that. I watched my friends do that. But, you know, driving a car, never thought twice. I'm like, oh, I'm a good driver. Now I'm like, I'm not the only driver on the road. You know, like I can do everything right. And, you know, Lucy doesn't have a dad anymore. You know, like it's just that fear was something that set in that I was like, wow, man, this is really strange and beautiful too, you know? So
Yeah.
Then you wonder too. You're like, man, have I already fulfilled my purpose? Am I already done? Was my purpose to make these 2 kids? And then what's the point of me anymore? Like, you can get lost in your head forever on hours on that one.
Doubt's never a good thing.
Yeah, no, probably not. You know, the other thing you're really great at when you preach the Bible, and I'd like to ask you about that a little bit more in a minute because I have the hardest time reading it. I need to do it. I'm not very good at reading it. Like a lot of times I start reading, I don't know what I'm reading, and I probably need to take a class or something.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not where I was heading with this. When you're on the stage and you're preaching, you're very good at connecting with the audience, right? And you're very good at pointing out every once in a while you do a Father's Day thing or a Mother's Day thing, and you're like, husbands, you need to be better at this, and wives, you need to be better at this, and parents, you do. And my big thing is I work too much. I 100% do, and I need to be at home more and hang out with my family more. And you've made me realize that, and I put a better effort towards it, right? So my question to you is, why do you always stare at me right when you're saying that? And are you really staring at me? Because I swear it looks like you're staring at me. You are so good at that. Like anytime, I honestly don't know if you're looking at me. And keep in mind, this is an audience with anywhere between 500 and 2,000 people. And anytime you say something that I'm like, oh man, he's right, I need to be better at that, you're looking dead set at me. There's no way you know that, but somehow you pull it off.
That's how you know God as it worked.
Okay.
Because everybody will say that. I needed to hear that today, you know.
I'll even look around like, no, it's dark. He can't tell it's me. Oh, no, you're staring.
No, it's me, right?
Hey,
John, you didn't get home until 8:30 last night.
10 feet away from me, I can't tell who's sitting there. So
don't give away your secret. It really works.
Yeah.
But, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, so I told you I went to church as a young kid, and then from probably the age of 6 to 20, I never went to church, never read the Bible, you know, really wasn't too interested in spiritual things. But that guy who came and asked me to run the soundboard, he taught the Bible in a way that was practical. So when I left, I was like, wow, I can actually do something with that. Like he talked about whatever, the way I treat my wife or the way I spend my money or the way I raise my kids, or I didn't realize the Bible spoke to those things because the preachers that I had heard as a kid, and I'm sure they were fine. Maybe I was just too young to understand it, you know, but it really felt way over my head. And so one of the things that we try to do is simplify. I was just coaching Brandon, who you know, he's going to be speaking this weekend, and so just spent some time with him this morning, and said, okay, let's see your notes and see your outline. What are you thinking about? I was like, okay, now you got to make it simple.
Because you'll lose us.
Yes, that's right. You know, you can't go in. This is all great, what you've done. You've studied for hours, but that's probably the hardest part of my job.
You've got to make it relatable to everybody who's listening.
Take 20 hours of study and research and break it down to, you know, a single big idea that someone can walk out and say, hey, I can actually apply this in my life.
And now you've got to compete with TikTok. You only have 15 seconds. You got Twitter that gives you 160 words or whatever, and TikTok for 15 seconds.
The ultimate spirit as opposed to the letter, right?
Good luck, Brandon. You got 45 minutes. It gets a long time to keep attention.
It is. It is.
The other thing that I always think about sometimes, too, I just thought of it because I think it's your name. Wasn't it the story of David? Wasn't David a great warrior? And he was always out in battles and fighting for God's purpose. And then one day he got lazy and didn't want to fight anymore, and then he got in a whole lot of trouble. Like, isn't that how the story goes? And that's always in the back of my mind. And I think what it is just idle hands, and that's part of my problem with the world. If I wake up in the morning, I have a purpose, and I'm not a warrior, but if I wake up in the morning, I have a purpose, and I go do my purpose, and I'm busy all day, and I do good things, it's going to be good. If a person stops and you just sit around, if you have idle hands, like I just thought it was a very inspirational story that just showed. If I remember the story, he was a great person. He did really, really well until he lost his path and had some hard times after that.
Yeah, there's this propensity in all of us, I think, when we're young and hungry and we are trying to climb that ladder or whatever, to put your nose to the grindstone, go out, kill something, drag it home, produce, I'm sure there are agents you have to talk to and say, this is what we got to do,
Literally, I hope they're listening. That's what we want you to do.
Yeah, you want to go to bed tired. That's, leave it all out there. Go to bed tired. It's healthy for you.
Yeah.
But then once you reach a certain point and you start thinking, I don't need to sell quite as many houses as I used to sell.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a such thing as balance, and you mentioned that. But there's just this idea that, hey, I can let off the gas a little bit. I can relax. And that's what David did. He was a shepherd boy. Then he was a musician, and then he was a warrior, and then he finally gets to the palace, and the scripture says that it was the time for kings to go out to battle. So that's what he's supposed to do. He's a king. He's supposed to go out to battle. But he was like, I'll just send somebody else.
But he didn't go.
Yeah, phone it in. Send somebody else. Send my second in command or whatever.
Yeah.
He didn't go, and then he saw a woman that wasn't his wife, and the next thing it just led to a lot of bad stuff in David's life. So I think what you're saying is that purpose needs to be what's driving us. And if you can find that purpose and you find, hey, this is what God put me on this planet to do, there really is some protection in that.
I don't think I have that issue because I grew up. My pet peeve is laziness. Laziness drives me nuts, probably to a fault. I always go to bed tired, but I don't know. But it keeps me busy. And
is he hard to work for? Let's just let him out.
Just between us girls.
Just between us.
Yeah.
He's hard to work
I
for.
grew up in a kitchen, so John's my kind of guy. I like that. Yeah. It was the first.
I grew up on a farm, so he's my kind of guy.
Yeah.
We're never bored.
Yeah.
We haven't been bored in forever.
No boarding here.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, so Kristin, why don't you lead into one of your questions, the good ones?
Yeah. So, since you talked to John, or you listened to our episodes, we always ask what you're salty about.
Boy, I thought about this and trying to figure out what people might relate. Can I give two things?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Maybe no one else is bothered by this, but the fact that they put two roundabouts in Grantsville, Maryland, makes
I'm not an engineer. I don't understand how roundabouts work. I think it slows people down.
I thought that was the whole part of your college education.
It was in a marketing class. But no, I'm with you. How does that make any sense?
I don't. In the trucks, they can't make the turn. So if you're up there, I mean,
half the time their back tires are on the curb.
Yes.
This is dangerous. I moved out of the big city to get away from nonsense like this, and they come in the heart of Amish country. You got buggies going around there. What in the world? It's like these trucks can't make that turn. Nobody knows how to. People.
You don't know what exit you're going.
No, you don't know. Yeah,
I bet you that trucker's praying, "Dear God, let me make it around here."
It's so true. And to get back on 68 West, you can either start going around the roundabout and get off, or you can go around the roundabout and get off. There's two exits there.
Yeah.
Oh.
Now, speaking of kids, you want to blow their mind, just keep going around in circles. It's a lot of fun. When you go down to get your Katie's ice cream, go ahead and take the roundabout 2 or 3 times. Come in hot back to Katie's little trailer and get it.
So I don't know if you've heard of the mystic land of New Jersey, but what we don't have left turns. What we have is jug handles. You ever heard of that?
No.
So instead of making a left, you have to go right and then you can make a left.
Always?
Pretty much, unless you're at like a 4-way stop sign. Yeah. Any traffic lights, most of them, you have to make it. You
Some
do a jump
senator's
handle.
son must sell asphalt. That just seems like a
Yeah,
lot of
he's like,
extra. That just seems like a lot of extra
There's not
road
enough
for
asphalt
nothing.
here. How can we make more asphalt?
My daughter, my 17-year-old, she hasn't been driving that long, and she needed to go to LaVale not long ago.
Yeah.
And we couldn't go with her for some reason. And so she's like, Dad, I don't like to drive on the interstate. And I said, well, honey, it's okay. I said, you just, go up 495 or New Germany Road. And I said, just go over to 40 and you can take 40 all the way down. You'll be fine, So she gets home that night. I'm like, hey, how the drive go? She said, Dad, I had to go on the interstate. She's still freaked out. I said, what happened? I told you, go past the pilot. You'll turn right onto 40. She said, I got to the roundabout and I didn't know what to do. So she just turned right onto 68. And
What it is? Sometimes there's three
the
lanes.
Right choice.
Yeah.
The new one in Morgantown when you're coming out of I don't
Mile
know,
Ground.
by Chick-fil-A. There's 3 lanes in the roundabout. If you're in the wrong one, you better watch out.
Oh man, I know, and
rough.
especially if everybody that lives there knows exactly what to do. So they're like, get out of the way.
They don't know what they're doing either. They just yell
they
at
act
you.
like it. Yeah.
I could not live in Morgantown without my horn. Like because you have
Well,
to
you-
teach.
Are you a road rager?
You have to
can't pass
teach
inspection without
people
your horn.
how to use the roundabout, especially in Morgantown.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't
All
hesitate.
right.
Go.
Fair enough,
It's
yeah.
a yield. It's not a stop. Let's go.
I
Move
go
it.
and I don't make eye contact.
Yeah.
Just don't make eye contact with anyone. 'Cause I don't know. I'm so insecure about this whole thing.
You had a great story about eye contact one day. I don't remember what it was, but it was something like that. There was a big argument going on or something. I remember you were preaching about it, and you were like, I just didn't make eye contact.
Yeah, that's a good thing to do. And you guys said don't do that with bears. too.
Yes.
So I didn't know that. So
Michael would make fun
Big
of me. I'm really good at just blending in and fading away. If something like that happens, I just have a good way of kind of fading away.
There's this meme of Homer Simpson getting sucked into a bush. You ever see that? It's a gift. That's John.
Where was he? I don't know.
Yeah,
He
I
wasn't
thought he
here.
was here.
All right, what's number 2?
well, number 2 is my wife likes to tuck the sheets under the mattress. I don't know if anyone else does this, but I like to sleep with one foot
No.
uncovered.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
And she will just fight me on this, and she will tuck it in under the mattress. And I'm thinking, what if there's an intruder? What if there's a fire? Or what if I get a cramp? Sometimes you get a cramp, you got to get out of the bed quick.
You gotta
Here I
go,
am
yeah.
fighting
Yeah,
for
you don't
my
wanna wait.
life here. And so, like, if we go to a hotel, they always do that in hotels. First thing I do, I'm yanking it out. Next thing, she's trying to put that thing back. So,
After you're asleep?
no.
She's up at 2 a.m.
Tucking you in.
That would be strange. Like, no, don't tuck me in like that. But so roundabouts and tucked in sheets. I got to have one foot out there just in case you got to be out
Interesting.
quick. Are
What
you
are-
a 1-footer?
No.
Yeah, I was
No?
just going to ask
But-
what your
but-
feet preferences is because it seems like I feel very strongly, both of your feet should be covered at all times.
Yeah, I had. I've grown out of it now, but when I was a kid, I just thought that something was going to grab my feet if I had them out of the covers.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So I've always been feet in, socks off though.
Oh, no socks, yes.
Dave and I are in the same lines. I like to keep my feet hanging out. Like, I
Oh,
don't know
Steve
why.
keeps both of his
I keep my
feet
feet
out.
hanging out.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Mandy,
I make a pocket.
Mandy hates because I love my wool blanket, and she's like, you're like sleeping with a Brillo pad. What is wrong with you? And I'm like, I don't know. I like it. It's comfortable in all temperatures, and we have like old radiant heat that it's kind of finicky. So like sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's hot. It's just is what it is.
I don't know why. I like my feet to be cold at nighttime.
Yeah.
Just
No, that's like, no, feet have to be covered.
Now, what you really should say is we both should be thankful we have wives who tuck the sheets at it all.
Yeah.
We're very lucky.
Nah,
There you
it's
go.
okay to complain.
They're probably listening.
They're one of the 10.
You said we could edit.
That's good.
So, have you been to the Honi Honi?
Oh, yeah.
All
Yeah,
right,
and many times. Yeah, I knew this question was coming. And
Okay.
My Honi story is probably different than a lot
I
of
would
people.
assume.
Well, that's good. We don't want all the same stuff.
Did you have to go there to
stories.
save somebody? Hold on. All the stuff
Did you
going on in the
baptize
world.
somebody at the dunk?
No, but we have a team going in this
Oh,
year.
fun.
cool.
So,
Well,
yeah.
all
We'll be
3 of
there.
us are dunking, so
Oh,
we'll all
is
be
that
there.
right? Awesome.
Yeah, we'll be
Okay. All right. I played a retirement party there one time for a friend of mine. He was a school teacher and he retired after so many years, but it was a daytime outside gig. But probably my best Honi story would be every year at the Christmas tree lighting, they invite our church to come. We've done it, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, and do Christmas carols. And it's really fun because you get all these people from out of town. You have no idea who they are, and they're here. And it's always, I think, the Saturday after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So to me, that's kind of like official Christmas kickoff, And so if it's not too freezing, I'll take a guitar out there. We always sing, but sometimes we do music.
I was there last year. That was neat.
Yeah. And so you just have all these people you don't know, and we hand them out lyrics, and we all sit there and sing. And for some reason, I don't know what they do. Best hot chocolate I think I've ever had is at Uno's Christmas tree lighting.
They didn't tell you they put Bailey's in it.
I was going to say, are you sure it wasn't Gorilla Milk?
Dave's like, give me another. Those are great.
You may also want to edit that out, but it is the best hot chocolate I think I've ever had.
I'm just kidding.
And just families like it, and here you are. It's one thing to sing at church, which is awesome with people but here's, 100 people out there you don't know.
Just on vacation, maybe they live here, maybe whatever.
Yeah, and everyone's trying to get in the Christmas spirit, and that's kind of that kickoff event. And so we just look forward to that every year.
There's nothing like Christmas carols. I love it. I love Christmas music. We have a big debate in our office because we started early. We play it frequently.
When are you allowed to start in your office?
Well, I was given a 1 day a week rule.
What? I didn't hear about this.
I know. We have a Grinch amongst us.
A Grinch-miss?
A Grinch amongst us.
Oh, you're talking about Mike Kennedy?
Yeah, Mike Kennedy. M-I-K-E.
That was easy.
We don't have to
about Mike, I got your back. I don't know. No.
Anyway,
yeah. Any names.
But yeah, definitely Mike Kennedy. But yeah, we like to play it. So sometimes we just wait for him to complain about it. And then we might switch it. We might say that we don't know how to switch it back.
Real quick question before we hop off. Today's Fat Tuesday. Do you have a Lent protocol? Are you giving up anything for Lent, or is that not a part of it for you? Or
it is not an official part of our church life. So I know for some churches it is, but we will usually do something leading up to Easter.
Yeah,
because Easter is our biggest event of the year.
Sure,
and it's kind of Super Bowl of the church world, and so we'll usually do something to try, and sometimes that's fasting or giving up things.
Sure,
it's not strict Lent, so we can't really celebrate Fat Tuesday.
Understood. Yeah.
I'm fat every Tuesday, so
we'll just go to Mardi Gras.
Dude, whatever. You have lost a ton of weight.
Well, I have, but it is trying real hard to come back. So
that's life.
I got to do something about that.
You look great, man, and I have no idea how much you lost or didn't lose. I just know you lost a lot. You look great.
Appreciate that. God bless you for saying that.
Anything you want, preacher man.
Hey, pulling out the big guns.
Is Easter the Super Bowl? Like, what about Christmas? Like, Easter's it? Easter's the big one?
Easter's it. Christmas is big too.
Yeah.
But Easter's it. We had over 2,200 people there last year. That was in 4 services. Our building can't hold that many at one time. So that's in 4 services. This year we're going to do at least 4, and we're starting to get the plans ready for that. And we just try to go big. It's the greatest event in history, so we celebrate it big.
Do you still go to the fairgrounds, or your new facility is big enough now to facilitate 4 services?
Yeah, we don't do fairgrounds anymore.
It's got to be hard. 4 services? I mean, that's got to be
Do you say the same exact thing every 4 services?
Can't.
You try, but people will say
you got to let the spirit move.
Yeah,
you can't.
Yeah.
Does anybody stay for all 4?
Well, a lot of our volunteers do.
Oh, okay.
A lot of our volunteers do. We have hundreds of volunteers, who make it happen. Choir, band, all that kind of stuff. So, we loved fairgrounds because you could get everyone together at one time.
Yeah.
But that building is rough to hear in.
Yes.
It's a big echo box.
Yeah, it's just rough. And, I've had old people say, hey, I think you did a good job today, but I don't know because I couldn't hear you. And so the new facility is just much nicer for acoustics. And
the new church is pretty amazing. Mike and Kristin, I don't know if you've been in there now, but it's amazing.
Nope.
The acoustics are set up right. Like,
That's cool.
It's neat. And we haven't made it through a show yet without talking about COVID, so we get flagged every time we do, so might as well go ahead and get flagged. But what was it like for you to build a brand new church? Like, literally, church's done, guys, come tomorrow, first Sunday service, and then, there's COVID. Like, that's basically how the timeline worked, right?
Yeah, we were still building while it was going on, and it was the scariest time in my life because we had asked people to give a lot of money, to do it, And we said, hey, we're gonna break ground, and did that, and we did. We broke ground in like I don't know, maybe in January, I think, and we start building there shortly after. Next thing you know, March comes along, and we thought, hey, we're gonna get shut down. And we actually had a couple of visits from the state police because they saw at the time there was more cars there than should be there, and I'm like, this is just a construction crew. That was kind of freaky. Like, yeah, that was weird. And so we didn't know what was going to happen, but one of the things we did, our church is great about being flexible, so, I mean, we had to shut down for about a month, but we were quick to come back.
Yeah.
And so we went to parking lot services. That was crazy. Preaching to cars, instead of people clapping their hands, they honked their
adapted.
horn. Just adapted. We found
That's
played the
Garrett
hand you were
County
dealt.
for you. Yeah.
we found a company out of Pittsburgh that has these mobile stages.
Yeah.
And of course, all their shows got shut down. So I was like, hey, could we just rent one, for 4 months?
Yeah.
We'll put it in our parking lot, and you could fold it up, and it was really kind of cool, And so that way we didn't have to, set up a stage every week. So we put that in the corner. We did that, and then as soon as the weather got decent, we moved to the fairgrounds, and so we kept the doors open. And if people wanted to pull their cars up to the doors, they could do that. But we were just trying to say, we knew people still had to get together.
Sure.
The emotional and the mental.
They probably
stress.
needed you. The irony is they needed you more then than ever.
Correct.
And they couldn't come.
Yeah, there was so much fear and stuff. So we just said, hey, whatever we have to do to get people together, let's get them together. And then cold weather was coming again. And so thankfully we were able to keep the building going. And just right as the time, I think we had to shut down for maybe 1 or 2 more weeks. And then we were able to open the new building. So yeah, it all worked out.
And it probably, we're looking back, it was the scariest time of our careers and probably our life too. But it advanced us so far. It forced us to do things we would never do. Like, I'm curious what your membership today is because you offer online services on Facebook and YouTube and stuff like that. Like, I'm not saying you wouldn't have gotten there, but you got there a whole lot quicker because you had to.
Yeah. Yeah, if anything good came out of that is like all the things that all of us, used to say, well, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You rethought all that, and you said, well, I guess we could do that. Why can't we do that? And you found ways to innovate. And a lot of times limitation is the key to innovation. It's like, it forces us to do this. And so that's what we did. So, yeah, we did. We grew by hundreds of people during that time.
That's awesome.
Because people, they wanted a spiritual component in their life, and they didn't know where to go to get it. And we made it available, whether that was in a parking lot or fairgrounds or radio or internet or, whatever we had to do.
Getting back to baptism, it doesn't matter about the water. It just matters that you were there.
Correct. Correct. The methods change. The message always stays the same.
There's a guy. Have you ever heard of Robert Anton Wilson?
I don't think so.
He's a philosopher and comedian type guy at one point in time. But he had this sect of Buddhism that he found that like really kind of brought him. He's a profound atheist, actually, in such a way. And he said, he couldn't get behind these Buddhisms because he just likes facts and he likes, things. He can't believe he needs to have some sort of material way of like proof that, the examples that we talked about wouldn't be, right? And so, he found
You're saying what I meant to a whole lot better. Thank you.
Yeah,
This is what I was good at.
So, but he all of these Buddhist faiths are along the lines of like, as long as you believe, that you will come back and eventually reach nirvana. And he's like, I can't, but faith is the thing that I just for some reason couldn't find. And then there's this one, and I hate that I don't know the name of it, but it's a sect of Buddhism where it's like, okay, look, so long as you want to reach nirvana, or in this case, as long as you want to have a relationship with God, right? As long as you want your heart to open up. If that's something that you want, doesn't in this sect, it doesn't matter if you come back 1,000 times, you will eventually reach that relationship with God, that nirvana. And that was the breaking point for like that kind of flipped him over because he just couldn't, he didn't feel like he could be a man of faith. He didn't feel like he could just believe in something. And then it was like kind of like that. Well, as long as you want to believe, like as long as you want to have a relationship,
Because that's the trick, right? If it was
in
proof
your
of it,
heart,
like you
were
have
saying.
to choose to believe it.
Yeah.
Right?
There's ways, we mentioned, look into the eyes of a child, look into nature. Why do so many people come to Garrett County?
why do trees exist?
Yeah. I mean,
like,
you look around and you go, surely someone created this. There has to be a designer to all of this. Then our own conscience. Like even if you don't read the Bible, when you do something wrong,
Sure,
when you hurt
100%.
somebody, there's something inside you saying, "Hey, what are you doing? You shouldn't have said that. You shouldn't have done that." There's that our conscience in there, And so again, I think people, they look in a lot of different places. For me, what I found in my search, Christianity is different in the fact that we don't do anything to earn God's love. We don't do anything to fix ourselves. There's nothing. We have a little saying at Crossroads, and you'll see it on our T-shirts and stuff, that says Jesus plus nothing. There's nothing I can add to Jesus to make me right with God. God loved the world so much that he was willing to send his son to come and die for my sin, those things that I do wrong, pay a price that I could never pay on my own. He paid that. He did that all for me. And so all the other religions in the world teach that you are somehow climbing a ladder. You are going to get good enough to make God love you or to be pleased with you. Christianity says everyone has sinned. Everyone falls short of the glory of God. There is no one perfect on this planet except Jesus, and he dies to make us right with God. That's the difference between Christianity and the other religions of the world. And we're happy to see what God's doing in Garrett County. A lot of people have come to faith in these past 15 years. And we're not the only church. There's 100 churches in Garrett County.
Sure.
Wow. We are, it's amazing for our population that there's that many churches. And there's a lot of good churches. We're not the only good church. There's a lot of good churches, a lot of great faiths out there. And so we're excited that continues to grow and we see God doing some good stuff here.
Well, you have helped me. You've helped my family. You've helped hundreds, many, many of my friends. Preacher man Dave, Pastor Dave, whatever we should call you. You're a blessing to have here as a community member. I don't know exactly how that calling worked for you for 15 years ago to come here. We're all very lucky and thankful that you're here. Thank you. There are not enough good things I could say about you and what you're doing for the county, just for people in general and probably for the world. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on the podcast. Nice to meet everyone.
Thanks, man. That was great.
Awesome.